Okay, welcome to the theater room. It's my Tuesday show. Today is generally mostly about Wandavision. I have a few other things that I want to talk about today, um, but I'm gonna start with Wandavision. I'm gonna just kind of jump in. I'm Spartacris for anyone who's new, with the Generational Gaming and Entertainment Network. A group of guys who just want to talk about movies, games. We want to play those games, some old school stuff, talk trash, kind of like the whole nine. We're a bunch of husbands and fathers, and just trying to bring some fun to any other husbands and fathers out there. Like and subscribe. We're on YouTube or Twitch. We're growing out the network as we speak. We have all the socials. I'll be posting everything as I get more and more in tune with Twitch and with streaming and all that stuff. I'll post a recap of the show next week. I'll post a recap either later today or tomorrow, and we'll kind of go from there. Let me just go ahead and update my title here so everyone doesn't think it's Sunday. Now I'm going to just kind of go ahead and throw out my first spoiler warning for WandaVision. I'm going to talk in detail about some of the stuff that's going on, and it's basically I'm assuming that you caught up. And if you haven't caught up, then I don't know what the hell you're doing in a live stream about WandaVision. We're only two episodes away from the end of the season. We have a lot that's going to happen, and I don't know if we have enough time to really do it justice. We are going to be seeing, I think, another cameo. My gut tells me that there's going to be one more person making an appearance. I also feel like we have a major showdown coming between Vision and Wanda. At least the trailers make it seem like they're going to fight, and the way the show's been going so far. But Marvel's also notorious for showing us things in the trailers that don't happen in the movies. It's kind of standard practice for any kind of big production. So, I wouldn't bank on a huge fight with them. Maybe a quick, little spat. The comic books heroes always end up kind of going toe-to-toe for a minute before they team up and go after the real bad guy. Who, for the first spoiler coming off of episode 7, is officially Agatha Harkness. So we've been talking about her for weeks. She was kind of the first theory that was formed before the show even started. Everyone almost saw through the guise of this Agnes character and immediately called her out as Agatha. I wasn't really fooled by her performance last episode or 2 episodes ago, where Vision saw her in her car and she said she got lost and she started crying and all that. So this episode basically just confirmed that she was faking everything. The show really makes it look like she's the full-blown bad guy, but while we know she's clearly manipulating Wanda in a certain way, we don't know what the reasoning behind that is, and they gave us no indication of that in the last episode. She revealed herself to Wanda, but that was really it. So I have someone trying to jump in here and says it won't load. It says the Twitch won't load. He's gonna have to miss out then. I mean, what am I gonna tell him? So we all knew that was gonna be her. I think the reason her powers are purple is a specific choice. I'm wondering if she maybe got her powers from experimentation from the Power Stone. In the comics, I know she's generally just a witch. I don't think she really has much to do with the Infinity Stones. She kind of goes back and forth in the comics on whether she's a friend of Wanda's or an antagonist. I think most of the time she's kind of like a reluctant ally. She has taught her some things. The big, I think, connection in the comics between her and Wanda is that in the comics, when Wanda created her children, Agatha was the one who basically came to Wanda to explain to her that whenever she wasn't around, the children disappeared, which Wanda didn't want to hear. The kids end up being parts of Mephisto's soul. He takes his soul back, he erases the kids, and in order to protect Wanda from the anguish and the sadness, essentially, and the sadness of forgetting about her kids or losing her kids, Agatha ends up erasing her memory of her children. Doesn't go so well, like nothing ever really does in the comics. Eventually Wanda remembers that she had children, realizes that Agatha tried to erase them from her memory, which leads her down the whole House of M storyline, and ends up causing a big problem in the mutant community. Of course, Wanda in the comics is a mutant, so we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the show. Quicksilver, coming from the X-Men universe, confirms that mutants are now a part of the MCU, so clearly the show is going to tie in somehow. We just don't know how. One of the other things, so there's a quick little like teaser, I guess, for episode 8, and I'm pretty sure there was a quick glimpse, a blinking you miss it type glimpse, showing Doctor Strange possibly making a cameo. Paul Bettany, who plays Vision, did release a tweet, or in an interview I think it was, he let it slip that there's another cameo coming from a major character. He didn't give any hints as to who it might be, and he didn't say specifically if it's someone we haven't seen yet or someone we have. I know a lot of people online took it to mean that maybe Reed Richards will show up, because I don't believe for a second that the military convoy that showed up to help Monica was her aerospace engineer friend. I think that person that she met was more of like a middleman between Monica and whoever she spoke to originally. I think it makes a lot of sense for Doctor Strange to be showing up, especially considering that he will be a big part of the Spider-Man movie. He will be a big part of, obviously he has his own movie coming out. And I have a feeling that he's going to play some sort of part in the Loki show when that comes out. Just quickly speaking about Loki, I will be doing almost like a deep dive into what his show might be over the next few weeks. I want to kind of introduce a lot of the upcoming shows. There's a ton of Marvel stuff coming this year and next year. So I feel like it'll be helpful for anyone who's into the movies, not so well versed with the comics. I will give you guys a rundown of all the who's who, of who's being introduced, all the new people, how they might tie in, and I'll throw my theories out there because honestly I want to document that I had a theory, and if it's right, I'll feel even better about myself. But so anyway, some of the big things from this week. So one theory I read that I don't know 100% if I love the idea, but it seems like it's getting some traction, and there are some hints, and there's a precedence, I should say, for this in the animated Avengers cartoon, but that Hayward is Ultron. I don't know if I would go so far as to say Ultron has been revived or is somehow, somehow occupying Hayward's body or controlling him or something. I wouldn't mind the idea of Ultron not being gone for good, because the character in the comics was such a major thing for the Avengers, and the character in the show is, or in the movie, I mean, was really, a one and done movie, didn't fully do him justice, let alone that movie not being the best Avengers movie out of all the MCU films. Clearly he wants Vision back, and clearly he wants to put an end to Wanda because he's scared of whatever she might do. So he's obviously an antagonist of some sort. The other thing I don't like about him possibly being Ultron is it just kind of retreads some territory that we've done before. The whole Hydra growing in S.H.I.E.L.D. It would basically be the same thing. So Ultron has infiltrated S.W.O.R.D. and now, what they have to end S.W.O.R.D. as a company. I'm not that thrilled about that idea. But now the other big thing, and this is really the first time it was mentioned in this episode, but I believe it's a big thing, is the Nexus. So if you remember correctly, in the commercial this episode, Nexus pills, I guess, or medication for depression and altering reality, that brand name is a big deal. It actually ties into something called the Nexus of all realities, or Nexus beings in the comic books, which I feel like the Nexus beings could be what we're leaning towards here. So Nexus beings in the comic books are basically certain characters that held such immense power that they essentially became responsible for keeping the fabric of their reality together. And if they had decided to, on a whim, essentially, they could, if they wanted to, destroy reality, change things the way they see fit, kind of do whatever they want. So I talked about one of my theories that I have confirmed online is a thing that people are talking about, is the idea of the Infinity Stones being maybe like Thanos wished them away with his second snap, but the stones need to be around in order for reality to keep itself together. The Ancient One was very specific that without the stones, what we would call reality would cease to exist. It would branch off. It would be catastrophic. It would open up all kinds of enemies and villains. Right now, we believe the stones are gone, but clearly our reality is, for the most part, holding together. I think that the stones are not necessarily going to be gone, but they're going to, that each one of their powers essentially will manifest itself in a character that we've seen or we're going to be seeing in the future. And Wanda, I'm gonna say, is gonna be the first one. I know in the comic books, her and Vision are Nexus beings. It makes sense for Vision maybe to be one because the Soul Stone is what keeps him alive. But judging by the last episode or last two episodes, if he leaves the Hex, he's toast. He's not going to be around anymore. I right now don't see a way for him to be surviving past this show unless he gets revived maybe in Doctor Strange 2. But Wanda, clearly what she's doing with the Hex, the way she expanded it, and she's pulling in these people, messing with people's DNA, she is clearly controlling or messing around with realities in some sort of way. And to me, it just confirms that she is going to be a Nexus being. And I feel like instead of us dealing with Infinity Stones for the next phase or 2 or 3 of the MCU, it will be Nexus beings. Maybe finding out who they are. Maybe they'll manifest themselves over various movies. Maybe some people are Nexus beings, don't know that they're Nexus beings. And then, the next big event movie that we get is when it's revealed. Almost like the Cylons in Battlestar Galactica. I think that was huge. And I think this commercial, so my original theory was that each commercial was touching on every Infinity Stone. This one basically touched on the Reality Stone specifically because they mentioned the word reality multiple times. And I think we already touched the Reality Stone, so this kind of confirms to me that the commercials aren't specifically about all the stones, but more specifically giving us hints as to what is happening with Wanda. And then just piggybacking on that and on the Doctor Strange cameo, I had a thought. So in the beginning of this episode, we see the title sequence just shows Wanda everywhere. Wanda, 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 Wanda. Everything changes and it just goes back to Wanda. Whereas the previous episode titles always showed a lot of the other characters and had different lyrics and stuff. I'm wondering if... So originally I took that to mean that the show essentially, like this week, Wanda was worried about nobody but herself, which I guess would go into theme. She was depressed. She was stuck in the house, and the reality was starting to kind of warp and be all weird around her. I think my guess is that maybe Wanda instead, those opening sequences was somebody trying to reach out and get Wanda's attention. And the fact that we kept seeing Wanda everywhere was almost like whoever it is saying, like calling out to her in any way they can. So my belief is that was Doctor Strange. She's made a big enough deal already. Clearly, he has to know something's going on. His whole deal is trying to protect our reality. Douchebag. That's what he said to Tony Stark. So he has to know. He has to know, and I can see him showing up in the next episode or two to maybe help Wanda. I mean, he's probably knows more than anyone that she's not doing this on her own, that she's being manipulated somehow. For all we know, he's got history with Agatha Harkness, or is at least keep monitoring her and is looking for her. I did read something that the commercials, instead of necessarily being reality stones or things that tie into Wanda specifically, those are manifestations of somebody trying to break into the Nexus, not just by walking in like Monica, but like actually trying to take it down. And that would be the reason why the commercials kind of cut the episodes. Instead of, like, why would Wanda want to end her episode and show a commercial for something that's like a traumatizing moment from her past? The theory I read and I kind of agree with is that maybe Doctor Strange is just trying to find a crack somehow to get in, and whatever he's doing is causing these commercials to pop up. And, the way they manifest is that they connect to Wanda, since she's the one who's kind of controlling the power of the Hex. Those are my biggest theories. Otherwise, this episode, while the whole show was great and this episode was a fun episode to watch, it was, I would say, the first real filler episode. You had Vision and what's her name, Kat Dennings' character in a van the entire episode basically. And it also seemed a little anticlimactic. Vision was willing to sacrifice himself to get out of the hex, and then in this episode there was no urgency. He just sat in that car even though he could fly the whole time, and then at the end of the episode he just decides to phase through the van and fly back. It just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, anyone who didn't stick around for the post-credit scene, you got our Quicksilver scene, no pun intended. But if you notice, Monica's eyes turn purple right as she turns to Quicksilver. So it looks like he either captures her, or maybe she is being captured by Agatha's powers and he's there to help her. Who knows? I'm pretty sure his eyes were glowing purple too. So nothing other major happened in this episode. So Monica getting her powers is everyone kind of saw that coming. She does get powers. I think she's called Spectre or something like that, or I don't know. She basically can bend light, and which we saw in this episode. She basically sees the light waves or sound waves or whatever you want to call it. It was kind of obvious she was going to get powers, so I don't think it came as a big surprise. But I do like how they took their time to let her develop her powers naturally and not just kind of forced it or put her in some weird situation. Her decision to run back into the hex to try and help Wanda, it just fits her character, fits her history, because she saw her friend Carol fight off an alien invasion, so she's gonna grow up thinking, I'm gonna do what I want to do to be like Aunt Carol. So good for her. I do think I'm gonna find it interesting once we see her interact with Captain Marvel, and we see her show her powers and how Captain Marvel's gonna react, which I think it'll be a good thing. I don't think it'll be bad. But we only got 2 episodes left. I did hear a theory that there might be a 10th episode. I don't think so. I don't see anyone really hiding a 10th episode and then surprising us with it. Not immediately either. So I don't think that's going to happen. If anything, the 10th episode might be that new Avengers Assemble show, which is essentially a behind-the-scenes documentary. And the first episode is going to be on WandaVision. But yeah, so otherwise, a decent episode, but a little bit of a slow episode. Besides that commercial, major ramifications on what that can mean. But I do think we'll get some more answers the next 2 weeks. I know the next episode was confirmed to be 47 minutes, which is the longest episode we've had so far. So we're going to, there could be some big things happening. There's 2 types of things with TV shows. Either the second to last episode is the big episode where so much happens, and then the last episode they deal with the fallout. Picture Game of Thrones. Spoiler alert for that one, but episode 9 of every season, except for the 2 seasons that we don't talk about, which were the last 2, that was when the major battles happened, when the major moments happened, the major deaths. And then the last episode of every season was always a quieter episode where they just kind of dealt with the fallout and they put the pieces in place for the coming season. So I don't know what WandaVision is going to be. If the next episode's 47 minutes, fingers crossed that the last episode is about an hour, and hopefully we get some pretty cool, some Marvel action. I feel like while the show's had its intense moments, it hasn't, hit the action heights that a Marvel property can hit. And that could be on purpose, because honestly, after WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier comes, and that could be a big action-packed show. It looks like it's going to be. So we'll see about that. Moving on. So I'm doing my little Bond journey, and the next movie on the Bond list is Goldfinger. So Goldfinger was okay. I mean, listen, the big thing about Goldfinger is that we finally got all the Bond tropes that I've kind of been waiting for. We got the big theme song with the real fancy credits. The Aston Martin showed up finally, all tricked out with gadgets. It just definitely was entertaining. Honestly, these first 3 Bond movies, what made them more entertaining and more worth watching to me was the fact that I'm a pretty big fan of Austin Powers, and I'm now seeing the source of the parodies in that movie. So it kind of keeps it fun for me to watch the James Bond movies that way. I heard the famous "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die." I didn't even realize that even came from Goldfinger. The whole laser in the crotch, which was pretty funny. I did think some of the stuff was a little ridiculous, like when Bond was in that. I guess it was a stretching machine that was supposed to shake him around. Oh, hi zombie. Pancakes. Is that what you want? Um, yeah. Anyway, so he was in that machine and he was just kind of rocking really fast, and I guess it was supposed to be dangerous. Didn't seem that dangerous to me. There was a few things. The whole opening with the jetpack made me laugh. Odd Job was probably the best part of the movie, but I thought he kind of went out like a chump at the end. And really, I have a hatred for Odd Job from GoldenEye, so on Nintendo 64. So screw that guy. You never pick Odd Job. Otherwise, I'm kind of looking forward to getting past the old movies. I want to see another Bond. Sean Connery just doesn't do it for me. I know a lot of people say he was the best Bond, but maybe it's just I'm way out of the time period of Sean Connery. I think he's a great actor, but I guess I'm kind of tired too about all the Bond people shooting from the hip without aiming their guns. I mean, there was a few times, 54 minutes into the movie, someone shoots a gun and they don't even shoot. They just hold the gun up. You hear the sound effect, and then you see the results. But he actually pulled the trigger. There's no recoil on the guns. I mean, they had to be able to at least fake it a little better back then. So, but listen, it's worth watching because I want to know what all the Bonds look like. So next up is Thunderball, and after that, I think we only have one or two more Bond movies with Sean Connery before we switch to another Bond actor. So I'm looking forward to that. And then this weekend, kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about was Tenet. So I finally got to watch this weekend. So how do I define Tenet? Visually, it's a good movie. Action wise, I mean, listen, it's a good movie. It's Christopher Nolan, right? He doesn't make bad movies, so it's a good movie. I do feel like someone needs to grab Christopher Nolan and kind of tell him to just rein it in a little bit. Not every movie needs to be hard to follow, complicated, require rewatches. It's one thing if you want to rewatch a movie just because you enjoyed it so much. It's another if you have to rewatch the movie because you really didn't know what was going on. All the reverse acting and the special effects with the cars driving backwards, like everything looked amazing, and everything that was awesome. And even in the second half of the movie, when they kind of start to revisit scenes that we saw from the inverse perspective, inverse being the term they use in the movie, those scenes were cool. But by the end of the movie, I mean, I know there was a good guy and a bad guy. The good guy wins. Spoiler alert. That's just kind of it's expected. But otherwise, I just don't really understand what was the point. It was a 2.5 hour movie or 2 hour and 20 minute movie. Like, why did I sit through all that? There was no real message, no real. I don't know. The stakes didn't feel real, even though they kept telling me the world was going to come to an end. It just didn't feel like it. I will say the music was awesome, although Christopher Nolan has a habit of cutting a scene with some loud like boom, and everyone was just talking beforehand, so I'm raising the volume so I could hear what the hell they're saying, and then all of a sudden I'm getting blasted in the face with this music, this loud like deep horn, and it's just not necessary. It really is just not necessary. So yeah, it's worth watching. Honestly, if you're a Christopher Nolan fan, it's worth watching. I could see the movie being a little more entertaining if you're on the big screen in a theater with the big surround sound and all that stuff. I kind of understand why Christopher Nolan was all annoyed that Warner Brothers is releasing it on HBO Max, but I was done with it when I finished the movie. I thought to myself, I can watch it again to try and understand it, or I don't ever have to come back to it. And if I never come back to it, I'm never gonna miss it. So I'm not worried about that. And yeah, and then the last thing was my wife made some phenomenal chocolate chip banana bread. For some reason, I can't get the images to upload, so I will put them on the recap video along with the recipe and a link to where she got the recipe from. But it's just fantastic. Chocolate chips, bread, obviously banana. It was moist. It was delicious. Wait till you see these pictures. You're gonna want to know how to make it. She said it was very easy to make. But to me, when a hard thing of cooking for me is pasta and meat sauce. So, for her to say it's easy, that she's good at this stuff, I'm not. But yeah, so that's gonna be it for the show today. I feel I'm almost guarantee you there's gonna be a lot more to talk about on next Tuesday after WandaVision episode 8. Like I said, there's 2 episodes left. So let's keep our fingers crossed that Marvel's going to land the plane. So far, I think they've done a great job. And while this episode that just passed, episode 7, was a little slow, every show needs filler episodes in order to kind of move people in the right place. It's a chess game, right? So they need to get everyone where they need to be. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on Sunday with all the latest updates and news. In the video game world, there's a PlayStation Direct on Thursday, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. They just announced a PlayStation VR headset for the PS5, but that's not coming out till 2022. I'm also gonna give my thoughts on the Tom and Jerry movie. I don't know if anyone else thinks this, but it's giving me a Who Framed Roger Rabbit vibe, which is a good thing. But that comes out soon, actually. I think this month, so that's not we don't have to wait too long for that. I gave plenty of thoughts on Mortal Kombat. Right now, besides WandaVision, Mortal Kombat is the thing that's sticking with me, and that's just kind of on my mind. I think I'm going to do a little bit more of a deep dive also on each of the characters again at some point. But my biggest project that I want to do for everybody is a kind of who's who, phase 4 and 5 of the MCU. Introduce the new characters, give a rundown of their comic book origins. Maybe let's play some game. Let's have some fun and guess on how they're going to be introduced into the movie world, how they're going to tie into certain characters and certain previous movies. There's a lot of shows coming out, so I'm going to list all those. I'll give you guys all the information on the release dates. And for the most part, for the time being, we're going to end one Marvel property and go right into another Marvel property. So we have plenty to talk about. Keep an eye out for everyone else in the Generational Gaming and Entertainment Network. ScytheX, One Shot, the Captain. ScytheX looks like he's playing Rocket League right now. He's on and off constantly, streaming a lot of games, a lot of Call of Duty. I'll be streaming Control at some point this week. My new kick right now, for whatever reason, is I'm in a Resident Evil kick, so I'm playing Resident Evil 0 on the Switch. I'll be probably sharing some of that gameplay at some point. Hit us up on all the social medias. I'll add them all to the recap video tomorrow and on YouTube. And give me your comments, give me your feedback. Let me know what you want to talk about. Let me know any theories you might have, any theories I may have missed, so on and so forth, man. Thanks, everybody. I'm Spartacris, and I'll see you guys on Sunday.